appreciate everybody that's tuning in and everybody that will be able to hear this, because this is probably the most important election in our lifetime for our nation and for our state. Let me tell you a little bit about Advance America. Advance America is a nonpartisan, tax-exempt education organization that I founded with just 10 people in 1980. Today, by the grace of God, it's going to become the largest pro-family, pro-church organization in the state of Indiana, defending the rights of individuals to choose the educational setting for their child, homeschool, Christian school, or public school, or charter school, as well as to protect churches and their various ministries. Again, we were founded in 1980. During the Indiana General Assembly, I review all the bills that are filed. Next year in the General Assembly, there may be as many as 1,000 separate bills filed in the Indiana General Assembly. I testify before committees in the House and the Senate. I help write the bills. I help write amendments as well. We send out legislative updates and legislative alerts on things that are happening. It may shock you that it only takes 10 to 15 emails or phone calls to be an avalanche on an issue at the Indiana General Assembly. You say, why is that? That's because most people don't know what's going on at the General Assembly, or they think they can't make a difference, and that's just not true. If you listen to the local radio station, however, and the local television station, and read the newspaper every day, you wouldn't know 99% of what's going on at the General Assembly that touches on issues of freedom and families and churches here in the state of Indiana. But through Advance America, we'll keep you up to date on those things so you can then get involved in your government. Again, since our founding in 1980 with just 10 people, we've grown to become the largest pro-family and pro-church organization in the state of Indiana. Now, during an election year like this, we've already had the Indiana General Assembly. This was our 40th legislative session. But the election now is just 13 days away. And during election years, what we do, we put out voter guides. We first of all help people get registered to vote. And by the way, the issues that we're talking about are not Republican or Democrat. The issues that we focus on are positions of right versus wrong. And so when we think about the election, a lot of people think that they can't make a difference and there's no difference between the candidates, and that's just not true. During the election, we help people get registered to vote because you don't register Republican or Democrat, you just register to vote in the state of Indiana. But when it comes to voting, people say, well, there's not much difference between the candidates, or how do you know the truth about where the candidates really stand? Well, for 34 years, beginning in 1986, we've put out millions and millions of nonpartisan voter guides so that people will know the difference about where the candidates stand. You say, Eric, how do you get your information for the voter guides? Well, we don't just try to scan newspapers or listen or look at things that they've put out in a TV ad or a radio ad, because many people have never run for office. Now, an incumbent, of course, has a voting record serving in the Indiana General Assembly or in Congress or the U.S. Senate. But what we've done since 1986, we let candidates answer for themselves. We put out questionnaires to the candidates and let them respond on issues of importance to the families and the churches of the state of Indiana. Now, you've got a voter guide. If you have one of those there with you, Tim, if we could get everybody a voter guide maybe out of the box there, so that way then we could review this with everybody, that would be wonderful. I've chosen Congressional District 5 because this is the district that we're in Hamilton County right now. This is the district that Hamilton County is in. But for everybody that's listening and viewing in or sees this on social media, you can go to our website, advanceamerica.com, and you can click on your congressional district. There are 9 in the state of Indiana, and you can then download a voter guide, a nonpartisan voter guide that you can take with you to the polls. You can share this on social media as well, so that you can then know where the candidates stand. You can let your friends, your neighbors, your coworkers know as well. Now, for churches, for pastors listening in, because Advance America is a 501c3 nonpartisan tax-exempt education organization, all the materials that Advance America puts out can be distributed in a church without violating the church's tax-exempt status, because again, we don't endorse candidates. You'll notice, for example, that on the voter guide, the 2020 voter guide for Congressional District 5, that it doesn't list what party the individual belongs to. It also doesn't list whether or not the individual is an incumbent. Instead, we just list the candidate, and we talk about where they stand on 7 issues. We have the statewide races on the left-hand side, the race for governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general. And then on the 2 columns on the right-hand side, it has by county the state representative, state senator, and the congressional race. Now, let's look at the 7 issues, because we chose 7 issues that are of importance to all Hoosiers with regard to their family, their church, their freedoms, and their future. Number 1, supports protecting freedom for Hoosier families, churches, and businesses by requiring the governor to obtain approval from the Indiana General Assembly after a limited period of time in order to extend an executive order that impacts the freedom of individuals, churches, or businesses. This is the first time that we've had this on the voter guide, because what has happened since March? Governor Holcomb has issued a series of executive orders that, among other things, closed churches, shut down tens of thousands of businesses, forced hundreds of thousands of people out of work, issued a stay-at-home order that forced Hoosiers, men, women, and children, to stay at home. Under all of those orders that resulted in closing churches, closing businesses, forcing people out of work, and issued a stay-at-home order, all of those executive orders carried a criminal penalty with them. If somebody left their home without permission of Governor Holcomb, if they tried to open their business without permission from Governor Holcomb, if they tried to open a church without permission from Governor Holcomb, all of those individuals could be arrested under the executive orders issued by the governor. They could face 6 months in jail, 180 days, and a $1,000 fine. And there's no way of stopping the governor from doing what he did, because the only way under current law to do that is for the Indiana General Assembly to stop him from doing what he's doing. But the General Assembly is not in session. They left mid-March, and the only way to come back into session is for the governor to call them into special session, which he has refused to do. So what we're asking candidates is, do you support a change in Indiana law to help protect churches, help protect businesses, help protect families, help protect the freedoms of Hoosiers here in the state of Indiana, by saying that if you have a legitimate emergency, you have a tornado go through an area of the state, you have flooding, you have another pandemic, how much power does the governor have to shut down churches, businesses, force people out of work, force people to stay at home? And some of them, many people, according to one publication, as many as 200,000 people, because of the governor's order, may wind up losing their home because they can't pay their rent or they can't pay their mortgage. That is tragic. How many people, because of the economic shutdown, have lost their life savings? They've lost their job. They may not have health insurance. Domestic violence cases may have increased. Crime may have increased. Child abuse cases may have increased because of the executive orders of the governor. Well, in the future, we believe that what should happen is, if you have a true emergency, the governor can issue an executive order, say for a limited period of time, say for 14 days, 21 days, after which the governor must go to the Indiana General Assembly, present his case to the General Assembly, and ask them for permission to continue to extend that executive order. Because under the way our laws are set up in Indiana, the legislature passes laws, but the legislature has what's called committee hearings, where the public can come in and testify before the legislature, and then the legislature enacts a law, and then the governor enforces that law. What's happened since March is the governor has acted as the legislature and as the executive branch, because during this pandemic time, the governor has not gone to the General Assembly and asked for permission to extend this executive order. He didn't ask for permission to shut down churches, shut down businesses, and force hundreds of thousands of people out of work, and issue a stay-at-home order, again, with all of these carrying a criminal penalty of 6 months in jail and a $1,000 fine if you violated the governor's executive order. During this past several weeks and months now, under these executive orders, the legislature has never given permission for the governor to do this. Neither has there been any opportunity for individuals to go to the State House to testify before the legislature to say why this shouldn't happen, why churches shouldn't be shut down, why schools shouldn't be shut down, why businesses shouldn't be shut down, why people shouldn't be forced to stay at home. So under this first question, the question is, in the future, should the law be changed to say that after a limited period of time, again, say 14 days or 21 days, the governor must come to the legislature, ask for permission to extend the executive order, and if the legislature does not give him that permission, then the executive order ends in the state of Indiana, and the people gained their freedom back again. When you look at this, look at the governor's race. Under the governor's race, Eric Holcomb has refused to answer that question. Has he refused to answer all 7 questions? Woody Myers refused to answer those questions. Again, they were given opportunities to do that. By the way, all the politicians know what I do with the voter guide, since we've done this since 1986. They know that we distribute these to over 2,500 churches and several thousand families. And they know that if they refuse to answer the questionnaire, that they're going to put down as opposing that issue. By the way, if you can't get an elected official to take a position when they're running for office and they want your vote, you're not going to be able to get their attention once they're elected because they're already in office. Donald Rainwater said yes, that the governor's power should be limited from what it is right now. Lieutenant Governor Suzanne Crouch refused to answer that question or any of the questions. William Henry said yes, he supports limiting the power of the governor. He is the running mate of Donald Rainwater. Linda Lawson, who is a running mate of Woody Myers. Suzanne Crouch, the running mate of Eric Holcomb. Linda Lawson, Suzanne Crouch refused to answer those questions. Attorney General Todd Rokita said yes, the governor's power should be limited. Jonathan Weinzapple refused to answer that question. Now let's look at the other issues, and then we'll look at the congressional candidates and the state rep and state senate candidates. The second question, and by the way, most Hoosiers from, again, I've done this now since 1986. If I sat down with a group of Hoosiers around the state of Indiana, whether it's Noblesville, Indiana, or whether it's Syracuse, Indiana, or Elkhart, Indiana, Jeffersonville, Evansville, I can sit down with typical Hoosiers, give them these 7 questions, and it will take most of them less than 5 minutes to answer, because these issues are very clear. So number 1, again, should the governor's power be limited? Second of all, does the individual support protecting the current freedom for churches and their ministries from government control? Should the government be able to control churches? It's an easy question. Number 3, supports protecting the current freedom for churches and their ministries from taxation. Where does the candidate stand on taxing churches? Number 4, supports protecting girls in the public schools by keeping biological boys out of girls' restrooms and girls' locker rooms in the public schools. Should a biological boy be able to go into the girls' restroom and girls' locker room in the public schools? We believe that's an easy question as well. Number 5, supports protecting unborn children. Supports the pro-life position. Number 6, supports protecting the current freedom for private and home schools. We believe that parents should have the right to choose where to educate their child, not to be mandated by the government. And number 7, supports protecting the current freedom parents have to help them choose the best school for their child, including a private or Christian school. Those are the 7 questions. For governor, Eric Holcomb refused to answer any of those questions. Woody Myers refused to answer any of those questions. Donald Rainwater answered yes to all of those issues. Lieutenant Governor Suzanne Crouch, running mate for Eric Holcomb, refused to answer those questions. William Henry, running mate with Donald Rainwater, said yes to all 7 of those questions. Linda Lawson, the running mate for Woody Myers, refused to answer any of those 7 questions. Attorney General Todd Rokita, you can see there, answered yes to all 7. Jonathan Weinzapple refused to answer any of those 7 questions. Now, let's look at Hamilton County. Let's look at the candidates running for Congress. Christina Hale refused to answer any of those questions. Victoria Spartz said yes to all 7 questions. For State Senate, Scott Baldwin answered yes to all 7 questions. His opponent, Ronald Saunders, refused to answer any of the 7 questions. And then that was State Senate District number 20. State Senate District number 30, Fade Quadora refused to answer any of those questions. John Ruckelshaus is answered yes to 5 of those. State Representative Naomi Bechtold and Donna Shibley in District 24, both of them refused to answer any of those 7 questions. District 29, you see Chuck Goodrich, yes on all 7. Mike Vick, his opponent, refused to answer the questions. District 32, Anthony Cook answered yes to all 7, and Amy Kneeling refused to answer any of the 7. District 37, Amy Rivera Cole refused to answer the 7 questions. Todd Houston was right on all 7. District 39, Ashley Klein refused to answer those questions. Jerry Torr answered yes to all 7. And District 88, Pam Deckert refused to answer any of them. And Chris Jeter answered yes to all 7. By the way, Because our voter guide is nonpartisan, if somebody was pro-abortion, they'd be able to use our voter guide to tell who to vote for too. If somebody disagreed with, they want to tax churches, they'd be able to use our voter guide to be able to tell who they ought to vote for because they want to tax churches. Because the voter guide, again, is nonpartisan, because it's educational. It has been used around the state, millions of them since 1986, so people can cast an informed ballot. Now, let's talk about what an individual can do as we're 13 days out. This voter guide is for the 5th District. If somebody's listening in, they've viewing, and you live in the 2nd Congressional District up in northern Indiana, where it's the 2nd Congressional District for Congress. You can download a voter guide as well and find out where the statewide candidates stand and the congressional candidates and state rep and state senator and the attorney general's race. So I would encourage everybody that's listening to this to send everybody to our website, which is advanceamerica.com, advanceamerica.com, and they can then link on to our homepage and be able to download a voter guide for your specific area and let other people know. Everybody here has a circle of friends, individuals that go to different churches, and people that you work with. There are people all over the state of Indiana that can be deceived and confused by the millions of dollars that are being spent to deceive and confuse Hoosiers about where the candidates really stand. The voter guide will give people the truth about where the candidates really stand. So individuals need to share this information. There's also a short video, just a little over 2 minutes long, that people can share as well. Now, what can a church do? Because we are nonpartisan, we're educational, churches can distribute voter guides without violating their tax-exempt status. Churches can send out an email with a link to the voter guide. They can put information on Facebook, and they can pass it out in the church service as well, again, so that people will know where the candidates really stand. We're going to have battles in the General Assembly and in Congress in the next 2 years after this election, November the 3rd. Individuals have an opportunity prior to the election to choose which candidate takes a position in support of where they are on supporting churches, supporting families, supporting freedom here in the state of Indiana, supporting protecting children in the public schools as well. So it's great to be able to be with you today, because in this election, again, one of the most important elections in our lifetime, where a lot of people are wondering, where do the candidates really stand? They're seeing all these TV ads, or they're hearing radio ads, they're getting mailers, but they don't know the truth about where the candidates really stand. Here's what I found in closing, is tell me where a candidate stands on these 7 issues affecting churches, families, and freedom. And I will tell you 95% of the time where they stand on issues like tax increases, business issues. I found that people that stand right on traditional moral family values also stand right on free enterprise issues and creating jobs and keeping taxes low. So there's a direct correlation between where the candidates stand on these issues and where the candidates stand on free enterprise issues, which of course affects jobs. One final quote, then I'll take your questions. Ronald Reagan, in 1964, gave a speech that's been quoted many times, and it's appropriate to us in 2020. Here's what he said in a speech called A Time for Choosing. You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We will preserve for the children this, the last best hope of man on earth, or we will sentence them to take the first step into 1,000 years of darkness. If we fail, at least let our children and our children's children say of us, we justified our brief moment here. We did all that could be done. We need to be praying about the election. We need to be voting biblical values, and you know how to do that based upon the voter guide. And you need to be telling others about the importance of voting in this election and casting an informed ballot, because you can make a difference. Again, you have a circle of friends, a circle of contacts that nobody else has, and they need to know the truth as well. So, Pastor, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. Be glad to answer any questions. Yes. Here's what a church should do. They should focus on education and information. They can do voter registration. They can pass out our nonpartisan voter guides. When we send out a legislative alert, a legislative update, they can pass that out to the people so the people can then contact their representative and their senator. They can do all that. They shouldn't hold a political rally at the church. They shouldn't endorse a candidate from the pulpit at the church. They shouldn't get involved in that political arena as far as supporting a candidate, supporting a political party, or having a political rally at the church. But education, from all the things that I've talked to you about, the voter guides, the voter registration, and getting information to the people in the church about legislative updates, all that can be done without violating a church's tax-exempt status. So all these issues a pastor is free to talk about because people need to know. People don't know the truth about what's happening at the General Assembly. You know why? Or what's happening in Congress. They're busy raising their family. They're working their job. They're going to church. They're helping out in the community. And many people believe that, again, there's no difference between the candidates. Sometimes on the voter guide, it's crystal clear, the difference between the candidates. Sometimes you have two people that are running that are identical, either because they're wrong on all 7 issues or they are right on all 7 issues. But churches need to continue to do what they have done historically in our nation. And that's an opportunity for people to come and hear the truth about what's going on. Because, again, people need to be praying for the election, praying for their elected officials, but then they need to be involved as well in the political arena, because the political arena is where decisions are made that affect their church, their family, their children, their grandchildren, and their freedoms. Very good question. Thank you. Any other question that somebody has today?
I don't know if that's possible for you to do, but can you address that?
When people are asked about when they are voting for a governor or for another race, especially the governor's race, if they wind up voting for one person, does that vote really matter? Well, what they need to be thinking about is when they go to vote for governor, then they need to be casting a ballot based upon the individual that matches up with their values. And they need to be voting for somebody that this is a person they want serving in office that's going to be making those decisions that match up with where they are for their children, their family, and their freedom and their future. And they need to not be listening to people that are saying, well, you're just going to throw away your vote, or you don't need to be voting for that, you need to vote this way or that way. They need to discount that information and say, no, wait a minute. I'm going to cast a ballot for somebody that I believe is going to protect my family, my church, my freedoms, and my future, and do it that way. Very good question. Thank you. Another question about anything with the election coming up, with the voter guide, or something that an individual can do. Individuals, again, on social media can share all this information and put people in contact with our homepage so they can, in turn, download a voter guide for them as well. Yes?
Yeah, I have a question. I have some family that live here in Hamilton County and go to a church, different churches, and they believe that the pastor is kind of liberal leaning, and I get the sense from them it's almost like, well, he's not going to want to put anything like this out. Do you have any suggestions of what they could do if they wanted to? Or
Sure. For example, if people need to go to, I believe in pastoral leadership, people need to go to the pastor and say, here is nonpartisan information that's been done since 1986. Would you please just make this information available to the people? Mm-hmm. And if the pastor says, I don't think that's something that we as a church want to do, then what I would encourage people to do is within that church to start sharing it on social media, get it to people in their neighborhood, or maybe it's people in their Sunday school class or their home group or other things, is get this information, because you never know. I had a lady contact me this past weekend that wanted 500 voter guides. She's in a rural county because she was going to get them out door to door in her area. I one time had a man in his 80s that wanted around 100 voter guides, and this man in his 80s was going to go door to door because he cared about these issues and wanted his friends to know the truth. So don't get discouraged if you even talk to somebody and somebody says, well, I don't care about the election, I'm not going to vote. Don't waste your, I shouldn't say don't waste your time. Don't get upset about that. Just go on to the next person, because that next person may say, this is fantastic. I didn't know this about these issues and the candidates, and then they in turn become a source of information for other people. So if they can't get their pastor to pass out the information, then just start sharing it with other people within the church. Then that way then it can spread to other people in other churches too. That's what I would do.
How long does it take to get these if you wanted to order them?
The voter guides I have with me today, I have about 200 voter guides, and what you can do is you can download those and print them yourself and get them out, because this voter guide is on our website now.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Still good. It's
Yeah.
still very good, but it's
Another question from anybody? Any other? Well, please stay in touch with it. Yes.
yeah. One more thing, and we'll wrap up here, I guess, Eric. But can you speak to local elections and school boards specifically? Because I think you probably recognize that the minds of our children are under assault with just a warped ideology that's trying to take over in the schools. We may be living in a very conservative area, but if the school board is liberal, I mean, you're seeing just a swath of change happening, and I think it's starting there. So I know the voter guide doesn't speak specifically to local school board elections, but where have you found a good resource to look into those particular races as well?
For example, with school board, what I would encourage people to do is get 4 or 5 other parents together, call up the candidates running for school board, and meet with them face to face before the election. Have their questions written down and say, we want to know where you're going to stand on this. But as with individuals serving in Congress or in the General Assembly, you need to stay engaged after the election, because the pressure on individuals serving in office today is enormous to go in a direction that is contrary to maybe the position they held before they were elected. So with regard to school board, and there's still time to do that, or for a local race, whether it's a county commissioner or something else, get 4 or 5 people together and meet with those candidates and ask them. And if you're having trouble meeting with a candidate before the election when they want your vote, you're going to have a whole lot of trouble meeting with them after the election. And so that would tell you something, just like it does when somebody refuses to answer these 7 easy questions. Well, again, I've done this now since 1986, been around working in state government since 1980. And I found that if you can't get a candidate to take a position now on an issue that is of utmost importance to the churches, the families, the freedoms that we have here in the state of Indiana, you're going to have a tough time getting them to take a position after they're elected. So that's what I would recommend, is get 4 or 5 parents together and meet with the candidates now, and then let people know. It's so much easier now. When we were founded in 1980, you know, My Lands, now you've got email, now you've got social media. You can spread the word a whole lot faster than when we were around when we started in 1980. Another question, yes, ma'am.
Well, that way people can hear it on the video, so when we share it, yeah.
Okay. My question is it possible to contact someone in the media that you know will let you speak what you want to say? Because that would cover a wider range of people. I know it's great going door to door, but can we get the word out by media? I know there's a lot of liberal media there. I know there is.
Unfortunately, the question is there a way to contact somebody in the media? There are some conservative people still in the media. As a general rule, however, what I found now for doing this now, again, this was my 40th legislative session, and since 1986, 34 years of doing voter guides. For the most part, the media will not deal with these issues. The media will either twist an issue, or they'll just completely avoid it. That's what I found with the General Assembly, is when we're down there and we're working on an issue that involves the schools or the churches or families or freedom that is of utmost importance to the vast majority of people in the state of Indiana, most of the time the media will either twist the story or will completely ignore it so that people will not know what's going on down there. That's why it's vitally important for individuals to sign up to get our emails and our mailings, because we don't sell our email list or sell our mailing list to anybody. And we're not Republican or Democrat or independent. We're dedicated, have been now for almost 40 years this November, to getting the truth to people at the State House. We say that we're the eyes and ears for the people at the State House, people of the state of Indiana at the State House, so they'll know what's going on. But again, it's amazing. 10 to 15 emails or phone calls is an avalanche on issues down at the General Assembly when a legislator hears from somebody, because they wonder how you found out who they are, how they found out what's going on down there, and how to get a hold of them. So again, just one church with 10 or 15, 20 people getting involved is enormous. 10 or 15 friends getting involved is an enormous pool of people to make a difference down there. But we can't depend on the media today to get the truth to the people. We can't depend upon the TV ads by candidates to get the truth to people. There may be $20 to $25 million this year in the election spent to deceive and confuse the voters of the state of Indiana. And the only way around that is to get the truth through our voter guide to people in the state of Indiana. That's why I appreciate the chance to be here today and the chance to have this recorded so people around the state will find out that there is a source of truth and information that has been working on behalf of the families, the churches, the freedoms of Indiana now for almost 40 years, and they can count on it. Churches count on it. Again, our grassroots network includes over 2,500 churches and thousands of families, and we've got a proven track record in the state of Indiana. Our work has been endorsed by Republicans and Democrats and independents because they know they can count on it, because all we do is give the people the facts. Lincoln said, let the people know the facts and the country will be saved. And so our job is to give people the truth about what's going on so they can make an informed decision. Very good question. Anything else? Thank you again, Pastor, for the chance to be here with you.
Thank you, Eric. Appreciate it. And yes, I just want to take a second real quick, too, and just say that, one, he didn't ask me to say this, but Advance America, I mean, you guys probably run on money, I would assume. It takes money to do what you do. So if you know of anyone and you want to help support this cause, I mean, please feel free to, I'm sure you can jump on your website
and that's very important what Micah just said. Because we are tax exempt, we're a 501c3 group, just like a church, just like a Bible college. And so contributions to Advance America are tax deductible and they're confidential. It is not a political contribution. So thank you for mentioning that. If we have, for instance, on our website, a program called the Proud Hoosier Partnership. For $96, $8 a month, people get the book that I wrote on how to understand and impact Indiana government, has the phone numbers, the emails for all the people in office at the General Assembly and in Congress, has tips on how to run for office or how to help somebody get elected to office, how to become an effective, informed participant in your government, and people get that in a patriotic book for just $96 a year, and that's a partnership with us to help you become a more effective and informed participant in your government. But again, contributions can be made by individuals, by churches, by businesses or foundations, and they're all tax deductible and they're confidential.
It's a great way to help push just solid conservative values, and again, not Republican or Democrat, but just good values within our community. So if you'd like to give, you can jump on his website. I wanted to say a special thanks to Pastor Tim Winton here at Life Church, and just thank you for what you're doing. It's amazing to me. I'm a pastor. How many pastors are afraid, literally afraid, to take any type of stand when it comes to political issues, even on things like abortion, that I think most of us can agree, it's not a political issue, that's a moral issue. So many pastors that I have talked to will not touch it with a 20-foot pole because they're afraid to offend. And so, Pastor Tim, thank you for just not being that way. Thank you for being bold, for saying we are going to address tough topics, whether it's offensive or not. We have to be a light in this world. And so just it's very encouraging for me to find fellow pastors that are willing to do that. So Hey, I want to just pray over Eric real quick, and then we'll just, we're good to dismiss then at that point? Okay. Let me pray over Eric. Heavenly Father, thank you for what you're doing through Advance America. Thank you for Eric and for his ministry and for just the purpose you've placed in his heart to get the facts to people. I love that Lincoln quote. If people have the facts, America will be saved. And Lord, we just pray right now that in this upcoming election, the facts will supernaturally get to the ear of the people, and that we will hear those facts, and Lord, we will vote in line with biblical values. Lord, we know without you, this nation has no hope, but with you, God, we have hope for all of eternity, and we just thank you for that. Lord, be with us today. Heal our land. It's in Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen, amen. So, thank you, Eric. And thank you for coming today. And give it up for the ladies who made the dinner. That was a very good meal. We should do this every day.